Well, I guess perhaps we can just kick it off then. I see that there's a few new people here. I think like Sonic, NS61, Synth. I don't think I've really seen you guys in the past in community calls. So
Chimera as well.
yeah, Chimera.
Cool name.
Cool name, yeah. By the way, if anybody wants to speak, just raise your hand, we'll let you speak. So anyway, I think that because we do have some new people, and also I feel like honestly, previously during community calls, I didn't really give a good summary of what Themelio is all about. So I'll kind of just kick off by that, because I feel like that way, you guys could also ask better questions and things like that. So Themelio is really just a foundational root of trust blockchain we're building. The purpose is to realize the blockchain revolution we all wanted. That's a world secured by robust mechanisms based on decentralized incentives and not these centralized third parties. And honestly, I think all blockchains really want to do this. And Bitcoin was essentially invented for this. But I think Themelio is very unique in how it approaches this. And I think Themelio is better than any other blockchain at actually achieving this revolution. And this is because it's architected in a fundamentally different way from other blockchains. This has at least 3 different ways, right? There's a lot of things in Themelio, so I'd love to talk about it. But in short, there are 3 ways. First of all, Themelio's architecture is really minimal, and it's decoupled from applications. So what that means is that we can have a very small blockchain, but it's nevertheless general to all applications. So you have something like Bitcoin in how simple it is, but like Ethereum in how many applications it has. And that's just because we're not trying to use the blockchain as like this one platform for applications. And second of all, it has a really unique and strong cryptoeconomic system. I'm sure you guys have all heard of Mel. I think like half of you have probably minted Mel. And that's really just a really small part of it. Mel, of course, is our Oracle-free non-US dollar stablecoin. But the whole kind of economic incentives of Themelio are quite different from existing blockchains. And it's designed to have a much bigger security margin. And it really improves like the long-term security of the system. I'd love to talk more about this with you guys when I get the chance to. The whole proof of stake system, for example, is really different and quite interesting the way Themelio is designed. And finally, because of this small and secure foundation, Themelio is suited for mass adoption outside of what we think of as Web3, much more than existing systems. So I just mean kind of like security critical systems in general, like end-to-end encryption, like publishing and things like that. Back when Bitcoin first started, everybody talked about doing those things using the blockchain, but people still are not doing those things on the blockchain because existing blockchains are not really up for it. But Themelio is up for it, and Themelio is designed to be the strong root of trust for these security critical, probably off-chain systems. And I think in the future, that'll be 90% of blockchain applications. It wouldn't be NFTs, it wouldn't be coins, it would be things like highly secure communication systems, decentralized social networks, file sharing systems, and just a whole internet of applications that have really convenient functionality, but much better security thanks to blockchain-based, incentive-based trust. So that's kind of the whole vision of Themelio. And I guess you guys can ask questions about the project, but I think the purpose of this community call is also just to give you guys some updates on the things we've been working on towards achieving this sort of goal. So yeah, I saw that Shane actually joined. Are you free to talk? But anyway, basically, we're developing certain things like the documentation for the smart contract language and things like that. But I'd like to share those with you guys. But I think I'll start by asking, does anyone have any questions about Themelio? Also, especially about what we're building right now, any specific questions about the wallet, like the airdrop, anything that's going on. So.
I think Shane might be wanting to be a speaker.
Oh, Shane messaged me saying that he's just like just tuning in to listen, and he's actually outside, so that's fine. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Sorry about that.
Fair.
So Darren, do you have anything?
I was just going to say, I guess I have put out another tweet. I know we've got a couple of people in the audience just to say we're live now.
Yeah.
And I guess as one of the community folks, I would love to see everybody engage with these tweets more, and that would be doing us a massive favor to help grow this community, because we've got some really interested people here already. But just we would love to get all of you to bring all of your friends along, because
Definitely.
Because I think we're a little bit underappreciated in the space at the moment, because you see so many projects out there with so much attention and hype, and they really have very little to nothing to show for it. And I feel like we're kind of the opposite way around.
Well, it's better to be the opposite, right? Because now it's like there's
totally
only up to go. So like, I'm not afraid of FUD, or like maybe one day somebody discovers the project is bad, because I know it's not, right? So, but yeah, definitely, I think what the project needs right now is just more exposure. And honestly, I think like, just tell Themelio to all your friends. It is a really different project, and I think all of you are really fortunate to be one of the first people in the community. And I honestly feel like you're probably more new in this project than probably any other project you've been in. So that's that'll be really cool, right? So.
And plus, it's like a way longer, more elaborate like end game, right? It's not like, let's say you're early to an NFT project. It's like, they haven't minted the NFTs yet, and then after that, then I mint them, and then that's it, right? But over here, they're really going to be like a really big, fleshed out project, and hopefully start building stuff on the ecosystem soon.
Definitely. And I think like this is also why I wanted to talk a little bit about my the Melodium programming language, which is our blockchain's native programming language, because we actually have a whole purely functional, strongly typed programming language called Melodium. It's almost entirely done, but it's just undocumented, and we are going to be releasing the documentation for that soon. And once we have that out, I'd really love for more developers to join our community, especially people who are interested in kind of new programming languages, new ways of approaching on-chain contracts. And I think like Themelio's whole approach of encoding logic into the blockchain is quite unique. It's a little bit similar to kind of Cardano's extended UTXO, but with a very different language and execution model. So definitely stay tuned for that, because we will be releasing more and more information about our language soon.
Yeah, do we have any developers in here right now in the audience, by the way?
I think
go ahead.
I think like Captain codes. I know a lot of them actually code, but I'm not sure any of them are blockchain developers. Like, tell us, are any of you like into blockchain developer communities, or do you guys make smart contracts, things like that? Right?
Yeah, even if you're just like interested, because this is like very soon will be a good opportunity to be one of the first people writing covenants on Themelio.
Definitely.
And I think that would be like really great exposure. Even if you're just like interested in dipping your toes, it definitely is like a good opportunity to start playing with smart contracts, and maybe that's something that you see yourself doing one day. You can get some practice in now.
Yeah, definitely. I saw that Artoria asked the question in general, saying, will Themelio cooperate with centralized exchanges in promotion in the future? Although DEXs are very centralized cooperation. So I think like centralized exchanges, yes. I mean, we are planning on doing a token sale, right? And that will be in partnership with something like CoinList or Republic. I guess that's kind of like a centralized exchange, but I feel like once we launch the token, I would say most of the kind of promotion would be focused on our technology and building things on it. And I want it to be like Binance begs us to list that, to let them list us rather than the other way around. I don't feel like we necessarily need a lot of integration with top centralized exchanges. But let's see, right? I don't think we have like really concrete plans for that yet, because it really depends on what the market is like when we actually do our public token sale. Our current objective is really to stabilize the tech and to attract more developers and have a robust development community before we do a token launch. And this is similar to a lot of other projects like Celestia that are also building kind of new foundational technology, because we want to make sure the technology is actually good before we try to sell it. And that's really important for our whole vision, because it's really not about selling a token. It's not like a token project at the end of the day. So yeah, Nitroglycerin asked, one of my friends asked me about Themelio. He is a developer, but he was wondering about grant programs. Are you planning to launch some kind of it? Yes, we are. Like once we have more developer tooling out, and more developer interest, we are going to be running some kind of program to reward people who build projects on Themelio. So the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. It's a good way to like integrate yourself into the community if you can, go ahead and get a little bit of money doing it as well.
Definitely, yeah. And I think like especially one area we'd like to fund grants for is developing this kind of like non-Web3 blockchain applications, right? Interesting new applications of, blockchains.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. Basically showing off what Themelio can do.
Definitely, yeah. And what blockchain technology has always been meant to do. That's really what I feel like it is.
Yeah, true.
I actually have a bit of a question as well. Uh-huh. So, like, as somebody who, doesn't have any knowledge essentially of programming language and stuff like that, let's say I were to hypothetically start studying the language for Themelio.
Yeah.
Would I be at an advantage? Would there be any advantages to not knowing a previous language? And that, like, how maybe you learn, like, let's say I went to work in a kitchen and it wasn't a very well-run kitchen, and I learned my trade there, and I picked up a lot of bad habits, and then I go somewhere nice, and it's hard to lose those. Is there any kind of situation that?
I think it depends, right? Because I think like if you haven't programmed before, like I think programming there are two aspects to it. One is not language specific and one is language specific. So there is the general mindset of software development. How do you structure programs and what computer concepts are? You definitely should know those, right? Like any programmer would need to know those, and programmers who have already programmed would know those better than people who haven't. But let's say it's one person is like a good programmer who hasn't touched Solidity, and another is a programmer who has coded nothing but Solidity. I would say the first one has an advantage because our programming language is very different from Solidity and other smart contract programming languages. And that's really because our blockchain doesn't really have smart contracts the way we think of them. It has covenants, which are equivalent in power to smart contracts, but structurally very different. It's hard to explain in words right now, so that's why we're writing documentation. But I would say a good programmer would be an advantage, but a good Solidity programmer, maybe not. That's how I would say. Yeah.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Definitely good to have just the fundamental concepts down.
Yeah, definitely.
But like Eric said, definitely maybe coming in fresh can be an advantage as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I see lots of people have joined. You guys can just raise your hand in this. I think you can, right, Darren? Like, to just raise your hand.
I can see the settings are on that anybody can request to join.
Yeah. So definitely, if anybody has any questions, either just raise your hand or just ask in general if you want to text instead of talk. But I do see that we have tons of new people, which is very nice.
Yeah. Lots of new smiling faces.
Definitely.
I think to something you mentioned there a minute ago, Eric, I think what'll be, I know obviously we're working on the documentation at the moment, but I think it'll be a really cool kind of selling point for Themelio when we can properly flesh out the difference between what a smart contract is and what a covenant is. So when we can go into the detail in a...
That's true, although we actually do already have an explanation of that on the documentation, because that's actually not about the programming language. It's about our whole data model. We are a UTXO blockchain plus covenants. We are not a smart contract blockchain with accounts, right? Like that's a pretty basic distinction that other blockchains have too. I guess the only distinctive part is kind of our take on the UTXO system, which yes, we would probably need more documentation to explain that. And I'll definitely be kind of like releasing more and more documentation things as they're ready. And I'd love for you guys to kind of take a look at the new language even before it's fully ready. So.
In that same vein, I would be curious because you kind of mentioned it in the call earlier.
Yeah.
So we know Cardano uses UTXOs as well. Yeah. Is it like, you said, you kind of mentioned like Themelio, we're doing it differently. Yeah. And I'm not like 100% familiar with the Cardano model, but maybe you could like shed a little bit of light on that.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference is that the Cardano model, I believe they still use kind of a not exactly EVM like, but kind of like EVM equivalent idea of there's like this fixed contract and then the UTXO still interacts with that. Of course, it's closer to our model than to Ethereum's model, but I feel like there are certain features in it, such as I think their scripts are Turing complete, for example, and they have a rather complex gas accounting system. I think those are kind of holdovers from the account-based model, I think our system is more like you start from a really simplistic system like Bitcoin scripts, and then you just add just enough functionality that first of all, you have powerful thin clients, and second of all, you can write arbitrary programs. And that's it, right? And it ties into our whole philosophy of keeping things as simple as possible. Well, which I don't think is that big of a priority for the Cardano project. So I think it's more of a difference in philosophy.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
definitely not keeping it simple.
Yeah, like Cardano is actually arguably even more complex than Ethereum because they're kind of retrofitting a lot of Ethereum-like things into the UTXO model. So,
yeah, I heard that it's like particularly difficult to break in the developer scene there too.
I feel like that's also because kind of what Cardano is trying to do, right? Cardano is trying to compete with Ethereum, except with UTXOs. But like Ethereum chose not to use UTXOs for a very good reason. If you're writing Ethereum-style smart contracts, it makes sense to have an account-based model. But Themelio is more like, we're actually not trying to compete with Ethereum. We're not trying to make it easy to write the same kind of thing you're writing in Ethereum. We're trying to make it easy to write what you would actually want to write on Themelio, which is different from what you would write on Ethereum. You would be writing more fundamental protocols. You would be writing more kind of like data ordering oracles rather than like applications. But yes, as Masteel just asked in general, yes, we'll definitely release alpha documentation soon. And like, I think you'll love it. Like, it's very interesting. It's a very interesting language. It has a very like concise syntax, a very strong static type system. And I think it's just objectively much better than Solidity as a language. But that's not saying much. Solidity
probably low bar. Yeah.
Yeah, very low bar. Yeah, and 210S asked me, can I talk to you in DM? Yes, although I would read your questions out loud if I were to answer them. So, yeah.
Got a fun one from Nitroglycerin in the channel. Opinion on the current crypto market state, which is always a fun question.
Yeah.
As well.
Oh, yeah.
How this will affect Themelio launch dates. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think like in my view, I don't care all that much about this kind of up and down because like right now the whole economy is kind of volatile and stocks are going crazy too. Themelio, as I said, is not primarily like a token project, right? We don't need kind of like a huge bull market to be able to launch a token. Well, yes, it would affect, it might affect Themelio token launch dates. I don't think it affects it that much, honestly. I think the biggest thing that would affect when Themelio launches is really when we have a mature developer heavy community. That's really what we want. And, I mean, as long as the market doesn't like 10x downwards, which seems very unlikely, I don't really see it really affecting the Themelio token launch that much, because we're not really trying to target a very specific number or something like that at this stage. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and just to chime in there, like, even in these markets, we've seen a project launched the other day. I know it's an NFT project. It's a completely different sphere of Web3, crypto, blockchain, all of this. So, and it's the, I forget what it was called. It's the one with the goblins, and it's done remarkably well in a short space of time. And there's money there. It's just people are going to be a little bit more. They're going to be a little bit more skeptical about what they're going to do with their funds. That's my opinion.
Those projects are so interesting to me because I wonder where they get such it seems like very spontaneous, like very quick, I don't know, audience. Like they reach a lot of people very quickly, and I wonder how they achieve that. With the value propositions, like how does one NFT project out of the thousands that get launched every week rise above all the rest? What do you guys think?
I feel like it's more like a positive feedback loop kind of thing, right? If you have, let's say, 100 NFT projects that are exactly the same in value proposition, and then due to random chance, one of it is like 10% more popular than the others, the newcomers will be more likely to be attracted by the more popular one, and then it kind of takes over everything, right? Like I think a lot of it is this kind of thing, and of course there's other factors like whether influencers like it, I guess, and honestly just things like, is the NFT pretty, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, no, I saw one of the ugliest ones I've seen today. Got really popular popular among like devs. It seems like a lot of like it's I don't know. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to seem like I'm shilling. I think it's a weird project, but it's a lot of like high level developers are in the community, and it's very ugly. It's like it's crazy.
I even once saw like this NFT project that was making like 3D assets for like the metaverse, so to speak, and they were like really poor quality. They looked like they belonged in the 1990s. Like they were like low poly clothes and stuff that looked. I don't know why they were selling it, but apparently it was selling pretty well. I think it's partly just there's a lot of people who just want to buy NFTs for fun, and I don't think that people care all that much about the value of the NFTs. Like personally, I'm rather bearish on NFTs in the medium term, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I feel similarly about NFTs. Like, I think right now maybe we're seeing like a bubble kind of like, maybe not, it's not going to, but we're seeing like, oh, maybe they're not that valuable. But I think you're right about maybe it's more of a community thing because, they just make them their profile pictures. And then it's like you see somebody with your NFT, that they're part of your community or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's actually I do think that a lot of people are doing it for like kind of like to be part of the community.
Yeah, it's kind of like baseball trading cards, right? I feel like it's that kind of dynamic going on.
Yeah,
like with this kind of rarity and stuff, different traits. You might get and there's obviously a certain gambling element to it. I think the one thing I can say is sometimes you'll see a project will have they'll really put together a good narrative. Like maybe they'll make a fun story about the origin of the cartoonish character that is the NFT, and they'll get people's attention that way. And if things go well, then that kind of has a cascading effect where sudden it sells out in 20 minutes in a market that people are calling a bear market or whatever. And I think that's kind of interesting, but
although
it's
I'm
pretty
still
bizarre.
really skeptical that kind of people are actually attracted by the value of the thing. Because if you look at kind of the NFT market versus, let's say, more mature art markets, right? The valuations in NFTs are so much higher, especially kind of given the same quality, that I feel like it's probably, like, I would say like 80% of NFT value is probably a bubble. That's kind of my view on it. I also think that it's really sad that when people think of NFTs now, they think of like pictures with like some on-chain thing attached to it. The more general idea of NFTs, which are just non-fungible tokens, right? Like unique on-chain assets, they are useful for all sorts of incredibly interesting, like technical applications, right? And I think like when I build things on them, I probably should just call them something other than NFTs, which is unfortunate because NFTs now is pictures.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get I totally understand what you mean. The first ones I ever bought were actually trading cards in a game, and this was back in 2017 or something. And I was like, "This is amazing!" And then I didn't buy any until last year. So, but yeah, there's so many potential use cases and things like that are really interesting.
Definitely.
Maybe that's a place for Themelio. Maybe we need to get those developers in here who know how to who appreciate that, but they're like, we want to make some other NFTs with some real standout utility. So
definitely. Artoria asked, what will we need to build in the future as a security protocol based on Themelio? Yes, that's true. Like, and we will actually, like, after we do our token sale, and even before that, we will be building various tools to enable development of these tools. And those are not just tools, right? Those are also fundamental protocols, right? So just like the internet protocol IP had protocols like TCP and UDP on it that were very basic and a lot of different applications used, so will our protocol. For example, we will definitely build like an IPFS killer, so to speak, right? Like a content addressed blockchain file sharing system with blockchain rooted naming and security, right? That's something that would actually make developing a lot of decentralized applications much, much easier, right? So that kind of thing is definitely in our plans. And honestly, after we're done with Themelio, the blockchain, that's the purpose of the Themelio project, to develop such an ecosystem and support such an ecosystem. By the way, nice. Like, if anyone wants to talk, just talk. I saw that there's like 20-something people here. Like, maybe I'll just invite everybody. If you want to talk, just accept it, So maybe
that's a good idea.
Yeah, guys, if you have a question, we're seeing the hands go up now.
No, that's me. That's me.
Raise that hand for you.
That really hit a nerve. Struck a nerve.
That's me. But basically, like, if anybody wants to talk, just talk. I know that by default you're muted, but if you click the raise your hand button, we can let you talk. So Artoria, I saw that you're up here.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm listening to yours.
Yeah. Also, like, people in the Chinese chat, you can also just ask your questions in Chinese in the chat. I'll translate them and answer them. I think that could work too. So,
Spanish speakers in the chat.
Yeah. We have a pretty multilingual community. It's really nice. So.
Yeah, no, I do. That's very cool.
Hi, Captain.
I think that. Oh, go ahead.
Hi.
Hey, Captain. How's it going?
Yeah, I'm good. And it seems like to be the embarrassing moment where nobody wants to speak.
Well, thank you for both speaking and pointing that out. That's tremendous. But yeah, now that you're up on the stage, anything you'd like to touch on, or anything, questions or anything, more than welcome. We'd love to hear it.
And actually, I think it would be great if Eric can kind of more introduce the programming language.
Yeah. What did you say? I didn't catch that.
I mean, it would be great if you can do some more introduction onto the programming language of Themelio.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the thing here is really that right now we don't have a lot of documentation. And I feel like with programming languages, it's not something you can just talk about, right? Like how can I, for example, describe Rust or C to you just over the phone, right? It's very difficult. But I think like just in short, Melodium is a programming language for programming covenants on Themelio. And what are covenants? Covenants are little programs you attach to your coins to restrict who can spend them. And that really ties into the whole UTXO transaction model. And the programming language itself is actually pretty simple. It's a functional programming language. So if you've ever used OCaml or Haskell, that kind of thing, it'll feel familiar. It has a type system, however, that is somewhat similar to TypeScript's. So it's a occasionally typed, I think that's the word, but it's like a structurally typed programming language. And if you've ever used TypeScript's type system, it'll feel familiar. And the syntax is more similar to, I guess, Haskell or languages like that a little bit. It has its own syntax. But again, right, we're going to have documentation coming out, and I'd love to probably in the next community call, we could talk a lot more about the programming language. I could even like share my screen and do some demonstrations of it, right? Like I think that would be much nicer. But now it's a little bit not ready yet. Yeah.
If you want to learn like more, if you're like pretty curious, I went ahead and posted the links to the actual code for the languages for the repos. So if you're like, you don't want to wait for the book to be ready, you can start looking at the code.
Yeah, especially like, for example, if you just want to know what the code looks like, here is a pretty long file written in our language. And I think like it kind of gives a feel of what that language feels like. So anyway, I saw that Arturia in the Chinese chat asked a question. He asked, a lot of cross-chain bridges have had big security problems. Themelio also plans to have a bridge to Ethereum, and how would you avoid these problems? Well, I think that the biggest difference is actually that Themelio's bridge is structured in a very different way from almost every other bridge. It's not based on like a multi-sig or whatever that is trusted and people can hack. Instead, the way we build our bridge is that the Themelio contract fully verifies the like information from the Ethereum blockchain and vice versa. So actually, like I think Marco can give a little bit more explanation since he's actually really involved in building the bridge. But really, our whole bridge is designed so that there are no trusted parties. It's as secure as the blockchain itself, and that does come with costs, right? So one cost is really that using our bridge would take quite a bit more gas than using something like Wormhole or other bridges. But it's intended mostly for bulk security critical transfers. And I would expect, for example, other people to build, trusted bridges that are less secure but faster or something. But the official bridge we are building is going to be trustless.
Yeah. Just riding on the back of what you just said, Eric. Our bridge is definitely, we try to make it like as simple as possible. Like obviously we're relying on very strong like cryptographic structures to help us with all the validations that we're doing. But we really try to make it like as simple as possible to reduce the possibility of like those types of like exploits where it's like, oh, there's like there's a function that has like elevated privileges, and someone they found the hash that matches that function signature. It's like very crazy exploits that, because the most of the bridges that you see nowadays are like a lot of moving pieces. Ours has as little moving pieces as possible. Like Eric said, trustless, so no multi-sigs to get hacked, like happened with the last bridge hack. I forgot the name of it. But yeah, definitely. We're focusing on making it as simple as possible. Like Eric said, there are downsides. It is pretty expensive, but we're working on making sure, getting as cheap as possible.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
just making sure that it's as solid as possible, trustlessly. Which I think we're doing pretty good on that end.
And I think that actually kind of like these trusted bridges are a very big systemic risk in the whole DeFi ecosystem right now, right? And I think people are more and more aware of that. But I feel like something that people are a little bit less aware of is oracles. They basically have the same problem as bridges, right? They are trusted by a ton of other protocols. They're very systemically important, yet they're generally not trustless. There is some multi-sig that you can hack or something along those lines. And perhaps just the hackers are focused mostly on bridges now. But if I were to bet money, I would bet that soon we're going to see really big oracles having problems. And I think that would actually be a really good advertisement almost for Themelio's whole idea that the base layer should be Oracle independent and infrastructure should generally be Oracle independent, which is actually a big reason why we developed Mel, so that the base currency people use for DeFi doesn't have to depend on oracles.
If you want to see any more backing to what Eric just said, literally just look up Oracle attacks, on Google. It's a whole category of exploits for blockchains, for smart contracts.
Yeah.
So definitely.
I mean, if any day Chainlink gets hacked, right? I feel like it's a very bad day.
Taking down so many other dApps.
Yeah.
That would be crazy, actually.
Yeah. I don't even want to think about that. The idea of that happening would be
definitely a good time to start bulletproofing your dApps.
I feel like honestly, it's a little scary how many dApps security is basically equivalent to them running on a private blockchain run by Chainlink, which So I think
oh, go ahead.
I don't know. I just feel like Chainlink is weird. It's so obviously a centralized trusted party in the whole ecosystem, but people pretend like DeFi is DeFi, right? It's weird. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree.
How in terms of Themelio being independent of an external oracle like that, how does that actually work, I guess, on a high level? How do let's say we want to do some kind of DeFi on Themelio. How does that, how do we do that?
How we would do that would be because you would price things in Mel, right? You can read things like exchange rates off of dexes and MelSwap, for example. And I think that should be the correct way of measuring prices and other variables on chain by measuring it off of some kind of trustless, self-incentivizing source like a market. So for example, even on Ethereum, I would suggest people try to use Uniswap's price feed more than Chainlink. And yes, Uniswap's price feed is less precise. It might be more vulnerable to, front running and things like that. But all those things are mitigatable, right? You could have some kind of pre-commitment scheme to eliminate MEV and that kind of thing. But trusting Chainlink and trusting oracles, that's a totally different story. Now, the problem with Ethereum is that a lot of the times you can't use Uniswap, right? You can't use a trustless source because you're trying to measure something that's not trustless. You're trying to measure typically US dollar prices of, let's say, the current US dollar price of ETH. That's just not something you can read on chain. Yes, you can read, let's say, the USDC to ETH exchange rate off of Uniswap, sure. But even then, right, USDC itself is not trustless. But the idea here is really that in a Mel-based DeFi ecosystem on top of Themelio, if you kind of just draw the dependencies of what requires what to be secure, and it's kind of like a tree, right? They depend on other things for the security. At the bottom are the kind of fundamental roots of trust. There you will not find oracles. You will not find anything without endogenous trust. And that's our vision for DeFi.
That's cool.
I like that idea of not using oracles, but instead of just looking at like raw like market data. It does seem like, like you literally have to manipulate the entire market to manipulate the price.
Yeah, and the thing is that manipulating the market, when you manipulate the market, every other market participant is incentivized to stop you because they're going to make money out of your market manipulation, right? So markets are actually kind of like the prototypical endogenous trust system. You only need like a rational majority assumption to be sure it's secure, right? You don't need an honest majority assumption. But oracles are different. Even decentralized oracles are different. Even if you have 100 different chain links and you have them vote, that's still honest majority. It's not rational majority.
It's an interesting concept to think about, that distinction. I feel like this is something that I really want to explore, maybe like another day, but I want to think about it in the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, I could start a forum thread about it. Like, we started a forum recently for the community so that we would have a place to talk about these interesting things. So.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I would be down to participate in that thread.
Definitely.
But
yeah, that would be a great one for the forum. Actually, yeah, that's something we need to get into action. Yeah, that's a great idea, actually.
Yeah, I did. You kind of already like commented on this, but I just want to like reiterate. It is interesting how it does seem like Chainlink gets a free pass. Like no one is like, oh, Chainlink's like centralized, so they're bad. Like how you see with other protocols, like maybe
Tether.
People do that with Cardano or Tether. Exactly. And it is interesting how Chainlink kind of gets that free pass. It's like we're like, oh yeah, it's DeFi. It's like that's
I think honestly, it's that people depend on it so much that people are scared. I mean, if you think about
you have to like convince yourself, right? It's like, this is decentralized. Like,
I mean, like if you think about Tether versus USDC, right? They're both really centralized, but people complain about Tether a lot more because Tether is less systemically important to DeFi, right? Like I think
that was interesting. Yeah. It's that saying like a man will easily convince himself of something if his job depends on it or something like that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's funny. We're all very how would you say, idealistic to a degree, when we're like, oh, this is how it should be, decentralized all the way. All of this kind of thing, but then when we see 200% APY on some staking protocol, all of that goes out the window.
Yeah, definitely.
I also really don't like how people think of staking as APY. I mean, when you buy stocks, you don't think of the dividends as an APY, right? Like I think it's weird because staking is not lending money, right? It's you're buying equity in the system and then you're getting essentially dividends from the system. But I don't know. I just feel it weird that people have this conceptualization of everything as yield in DeFi when a lot of the cases it's just not yield. Like yield farming is not yield, right? Like liquidity LP farming is mostly charging transaction fees. That's market making. That's not yield.
That's interesting. Yeah. Do you think then if they didn't do like those explicit like royalties where they're literally sending you extra coins, do you think that value would accrue to the token regardless? So like it's
it would accrue to the token regardless because like that whole APY just comes from printing more of the same token, right? It doesn't generate any more value.
Inflation more than
that's interesting. Yeah, so that almost is like it's literally
it's like a psychological thing. I feel like.
Yeah. Okay, wow. I literally this is kind of something I hadn't thought about really, because I'm not like I'm not big onto staking right now. I'm not doing it like
so for staking rewards that have high inflation, it's not entirely psychological because what inflation does there is essentially it taxes the people who don't stake to pay the people who stake, right? That's really how it works. But like I was more referring to things like liquidity providing, right? Like when you provide liquidity into a pool, that's not an APY. You're charging transaction fees to the people essentially, and you're market making. But people call it like yield farming. And like I think like this meme of yield in DeFi is really interesting, right? Because in TradFi we don't conceptualize everything in terms of yield, even though mathematically we could calculate APYs for everything. We don't say we invested in a company for yield. I don't open McDonald's for yield, right? I'm selling burgers and making a profit. That's how I think of it. But in DeFi, it seems like we think of everything as yield. And I don't know, it could be a UI thing, right? People always like to display the APY in big text. So
yeah, maybe it is just like you get this percentage and that way you have like a number attached. And it's not like,
yeah, but I think it makes people conceptualize things as like bank accounts, and people feel like it's safer than it actually is, which is that you're doing a risky trade, right? So
yeah, like the time you spend in that we'll just say yield farming protocol or whatever, that time is, all of that time is risk. And the longer you spend in there, if the underlying project behind whatever token or whatever it is, if that doesn't deliver, like ultimately, I think some of these things can be fine for a while if the project delivers behind it and the tokens you earn are actually like the extra 200% that you've gained over the year. If maybe all of those tokens are now worth 25% of what they were originally, and you have a lot more, but you're way down in terms of the value of them. It's like, it's kind of a way for projects to buy themselves time to get a share in the market. And then as the APY kind of tapers off, it's like, okay, so now we really got to show why people would want these tokens. Why is this 200% extra or whatever actually 200%? Is it not just a different number game with basically with the same or less value, or maybe slightly more? But it is a big it's very interesting, I guess, and it's part of the whole thing being so new as well. But
definitely, yeah.
Castile is writing, in general, psychology is our everything. It's all completely psychological, I guess. Yeah.
I see.
Although I have some crazy like DeFi like stacking stuff where you, for example, you stake your ETH and then it becomes like SETH, and then you can go ahead and stake that SETH, and then that becomes like LETH, and then you can stake that one more time. So at the end, it's like 10% or something. But you're also like spreading your risk at like you're concentrating your risk, like stacking it on top of each other. So it's definitely definitely high risk, high reward, right? It's like anything else.
Yeah. But I think there's this whole APY thing is definitely interesting. It's like, for example, stocks don't do this, right? There are no stocks that would do something like, okay, we just print 10% more stocks every year and give it to our shareholders, because everybody knows it's pointless. But in DeFi, people do that. So
by the way, they're probably with stocks, there are probably rules regarding that, right? Like you can't just like make more stocks, or if you do, you have to like dilute them and give them to all the previous shareholders, right?
Yeah, that's what I meant, right? Giving it to all the previous shareholders, like as in for no good reason, right? Just to have the number of stocks you have go up, right?
Basically.
And then tell people it's like 50% APY, right? Like I just feel like, I don't know. I feel like it could also just be in DeFi. There's a lot of people with not a lot of experience with these things, like going into these really novel financial systems, and kind of you have this convergence of financial innovators and financially naive like victims almost, who are pulled in by these APY numbers. I don't know. It's a pretty strange world.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a class of people losing out on every single time that we see like a rug or anything, they're usually the ones taking the biggest hit.
I especially feel for, let's say, the people who invested in Anchor and things like that. I'm sure they lost a lot of money. So
no, there were a lot of horror stories that came out of that. Again, if we just to remind you guys, do not invest anything more than you're willing to lose. Like just imagine,
definitely.
It could go to zero, it could moon, but do not invest like crucial money.
It's not worth it.
Definitely.
I have some friends who were involved with had a lot of assets in Luna and were using Anchor as well. I don't know if they had Anchor. I don't know what Anchor's token is called, or maybe it's called Anchor. I think it is.
It's just Luna, right? I don't know.
So Anchor is a protocol on Luna that is basically it was basically used to kind of as I understand it was basically being used to attract people over to the Luna network by this APY in a stable coin. So that sounds super safe hypothetically. It's like
because they kind of went about it backwards, right? Like they wanted to build value, or they wanted to get the value before they had it. Before there were like protocols. So it was almost like sooner or later, if they didn't start building other important like infrastructure on their platform, then it was definitely gonna. As soon as people stop signing up, and
it's like a Ponzi scheme basically in that aspect. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, so definitely.
I noticed there was one comment in the Chinese chat, which may have been a question.
I think
Arturi.
I think I already answered that question. So.
Oh, cool. I thought it was a different one. That's perfect.
Like the CryptoJacky person asked something to Artoria, so it wasn't.
Oh, it wasn't perfect. Cool. Yes. I can get away with a little bit of Spanish, but that's about it. I'm a true English speaker, unfortunately, solely that. Cool. I guess.
Did you learn in school, Darren, or?
Sorry?
Did you learn Spanish in school?
No, actually, I studied German for a couple of years, and because in my school I had the option of French or German as my extra language, and all of the kids that I knew from the year ahead of me all were complaining about the French teachers all the time. So for that reason alone, I chose German. I guess the choices a 12-year-old makes, So I was able to speak pretty well for a while, like relative to the other people in the class, I was pretty good. But I'm not a language person, so I quickly forgot all of it after we left school. So I never really got to use it.
Yeah.
Sorry?
So I think that happens to people.
It happened again. We're all speaking at the same time.
Sorry. I was just I just think that happens to most people, right? Like you learn a language in school and then you kind of just forget it because you don't really practice. But anyway, you really say something? Yeah.
Like Darren, did you grow up in Spain? I think you live in Spain now, right?
I do, yeah. I grew up in Ireland. I've been here a couple of years. It was very much thanks to being able to work remotely with community for various different projects over the years. That and I had some friends that were coming here to live as well. All people who were interested in blockchain, and I guess everybody being able to work and live from their computers was really what facilitated me coming over here. Definitely. But the other side of that is that I spend all of my time indoors on my computer, so I don't get exposed to Spanish people enough and get to practice the language at the moment. But I'm gonna get some lessons soon. Again, I'm thinking it's time.
Yeah.
So, if there's any Spanish speakers out there in the community that want to give me some online lessons, reach out. I guess a good time, we can reiterate, if anybody who maybe joined recently that wasn't here a little while ago, if anybody wants to ask any questions, you can do so in the general chat or raise your hand and we can invite you to the stage. We'd love to hear some voices. I guess it might be a nice time for me to mention some of the initiatives that the ongoing initiative for the OGs, the people that arrived here early to super early to Themelio, and maybe another one that's going to happen soon. And I guess telling people who joined the call today might give them a little advantage how they can get ahead and maybe do better in that. So we have the OG award for anybody that is here that has the OG badge in Discord. You'll notice there's a Themelio OG channel that you should be able to see and a recent announcement about an airdrop for OGs. So if you haven't checked that out already, I advise you do so. And additionally, there's going to be another announcement a little bit later on today. So we want to, as you all know, we want to grow the community. We want to bring more people into it. And I guess as we've talked about with all of these different APY kind of systems that loads of projects introduce, we also are going to incentivize people to bring some people into the community. So we're going to do a very, very simple, but hopefully effective referral program. So everybody will be able to generate their own referral link, and then I'm kind of thinking it would be really cool to see what kind of creative ways people come up with to invite people. Maybe it's just, you know, sending it to everybody in your email list saying this is a project I'm involved in. If you're interested, check it out. That's one way. Maybe somebody is feeling really passionate and enthusiastic about Themelio and they're going to host a Twitter Spaces and say, this is a project that I'm interested in. I'm going to do my best to talk about it and explain it and, you know, share a link with everybody. Maybe somebody's going to go out and make some interesting memes to get some attention, whatever. But that's something that's coming up and something for everybody to partake in and earn some more MEL as a result. So keep an eye on the announcement channel, and as always, keep an eye on Twitter, because that's where all the details will be shared for that. So that's something I'm looking forward to, and hopefully you all are too. So yeah, I see Nitroglycerin has just joined the stage.
Yeah, I want to say that the most innovative way to invite people and get referrals is to make bots and send them by your invitation link. And I think that we should work that out as in other projects, which is a huge problem.
Yeah. We want to be careful to make sure that it isn't going to be easily gamed by bots. Yeah, I want to have a quick thought on that as well. So yeah, for sure.
I mean, like
maybe adding in.
We should probably just increase our Discord security level. Like, for example, not have people wait a while before they can talk. I think like Discord has the functionality to do that. But basically, I do feel like we should try to filter out bots and duplicates as much as possible. So.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that's very true. Yeah, I'll have a look at that after this call. So. To make sure we are addressing that, because that would be a shame if it was too easily gamed.
It's like, you know,
people,
one guy had 1,000 bots join and won the contest. That would be very sad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that would be bad.
Yeah, so we'll make sure that doesn't happen. Cool.
Yeah, I would also like to hear your opinion on logos that I made. If you saw it, I sent it to Melodium.
Yeah, the icons. Those are really nice actually, and we will try to use them actually in the next beta version of Malice. But I think Loading has probably asked you about it. Like, do you have like SVGs files for that kind of thing? But basically, like, I think he's talking to you about it. But yeah.
Of course, I can send it to you.
Yeah, you can send it to me. Like, so just send it to me then. So.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. They're pretty nice. Like, I'd love to have the original files for them.
Yeah, okay. And he told me that there might be a problem with small images and the details might be lost.
We can adjust it. Like, I think it might be best if actually, like, I just start a group and add you and Loading into it, and we can talk there.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Cool. So let me see whether anybody has asked more questions anywhere. Nope.
Yeah. Plus, I don't know. Did Mastiel ask their question?
Yeah, Mastiel, like, you can talk if you want. I see that you're on the stage.
If you want, no pressure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thanks for the information, guys. Maybe it would be a stupid question, but imagine that there is a noob, absolute noob, and this noob he has to choose what language to learn first. It's gonna be a Rust or JavaScript. So what would you choose if you were me?
I think both are not very good choices, actually. I think that, okay, so if you had to choose between the two, I would choose Rust. I think because Rust is much better designed, it teaches you important programming concepts very well. But I think that I don't think either is a good first programming language. I would recommend something like Racket or something like, OCaml, basically a simple functional programming language, I think is what you want as your first programming language, because I think your first programming language isn't really supposed to be the language that you use the most. It's really to teach you the programming concepts and how to think about programming in the most elegant and simple way as possible. It's kind of like the first car, the first bicycle, let's say you learn. It might have two wheels at the back, it might be really small, but it's not necessarily the bike that's going to accompany you for your life, right? So I think that a lot of popular programming languages like Rust is kind of both elegant and popular, but it's also very complex. But I'm more thinking about languages like JavaScript, Java. They're not Python even. I don't think they're actually very good first programming languages because they tend to have a lot of special cases and they don't really distill down the concepts in a very simple form. And I would recommend languages like OCaml or Racket instead as a first programming language. And in my experience, that's actually my own experience. I tried to start learn programming in C#. And I did not go very far, right? Like I could not learn how to code well. My programs were horrible spaghetti. I didn't understand how to design programs. And when I went to college, I relearned everything with Racket, which is like a dynamically typed functional programming language. And everything made so much more sense. I finally understood what things like functions and variables and control flow, that kind of thing actually was. And then I could then write C# and other languages much, much better. So that's kind of my own experience.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, for sure, man.
I'm going to share a link in the general chat for the UTXO Alliance, which is something that was mentioned in the community suggestions. So I'm just looking at the webpage now. It looks pretty interesting. Maybe something that we should get an application in for.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm not fully sure how it works.
I'm considering, although I feel like it's just kind of like a Cardano dominated thing. So I'm not sure whether they would be interested, but I can send it an application. It's an interesting thing. And I think that the world does need more appreciation of UTXOs. So
yeah, I think I think it would be cool. Yes, they've got. Yeah, I can see Cardano listed on their website and a few others. But yeah, Cardano is the one that really kind of stands out as the most well known.
I just wouldn't ask this actually, but I can see that more and more projects they use scripts building on Rust language, and these scripts they work much better than something written on Python or JavaScript. That's why I started to look for Rust. And
I think Rust is definitely a better language than JavaScript, and I think honestly overall I think it's the best programming language ever invented. But I was just more answering your question of your first programming language to learn. But I definitely feel like definitely I do like how more and more projects are using Rust, and I think it's a very cool language.
Yeah. He's definitely not saying don't use Rust. Just maybe the first month or two, it may be easier because even like I've been programming for a while, and there's a lot of crazy stuff in Rust that I'm just like I'll learn that later. Because there's so much like it really is like
but everything
insane.
Yeah, everything makes sense in Rust. It's not like C++, which is like there's a ton of features because of history, right? But then everything makes sense and it's all like one unified whole. But like understanding why Rust is in a certain way requires understanding some pretty complicated concepts. And I think that that's what makes Rust hard, right? It's not that you need to memorize a lot of random stuff, but rather kind of understanding why it makes certain decisions takes you down really deep rabbit holes. So, yeah.
Now it's clear, guys. Thank you so much.
Cool. Was there anything else that we wanted to go over? Was there anything we had? Did we touch on the Melis wallet bug fixes?
Yeah, I haven't, but basically we are going to be releasing a new version of Melis soon that will fix several bugs and also add a version number and also notifications for new versions. So that should make the kind of general quality of life of Melis much nicer.
Cool. Sounds great. Mm-hmm. And I guess we can put in.
Yeah, Nitro. What's
as I've understood, Themelio will be a developer-focused blockchain, and all the programs that you've talked about was about developers and programming language. But what about the community for non-developer guys like me? Will there be any ambassador programs, maybe, or kind of stuff that we can do?
Yeah, I feel
without knowing the developer programming languages.
Yeah, I understand what you mean. Like, definitely we want to attract investors, right? But I think that kind of our general model is really that it's more like, when we actually do our token sale over a coin list or something like that, that would be a huge push for people to kind of like buy our token and stuff. But but before that, we are pursuing like private investment, but like we're not really focusing a lot on trying to have like these multiple tiers of random crypto whales come in and invest in our thing, because honestly, as I mentioned, right, it's also kind of a community culture issue, right? Like, you don't want everybody here just to be kind of like investors who got in early and are just waiting to dump on retail when the token launches, right? You want people to be actually interested in the project and actually interested in the vision that we're going to build. And I think like once we have such a community, then before our token sale, definitely they would attract the investor. They would attract the people in it for the money, so to speak. And that's kind of the general plan, right? So that's why we're, unlike a lot of other projects, we're not talking so much about kind of like investors and things like that. But honestly, I feel like most serious projects are like this, right? If you go to Celestia's Discord and stuff, they don't really talk about this kind of program. So I think it really boils down to, we're not primarily like a token project. We're primarily a actual tech project, right? So
I think that point you made, Eric, about from a community standpoint of really wanting to avoid the situation where you have large investors who basically get in and then immediately dump tokens on the regular community who are not able to pick up tokens in the same volume. I think that's really, from my point of view, like from my experience level of working with many projects over the years, and a community standpoint, and sometimes like a community therapist, when these things happen and people, and projects manage it badly and they allow investors to dump a huge amount of tokens on people who go through all the effort of getting KYC'd and stuff like that for a public sale, and then they immediately just kind of get wiped out and stuff. And I think that's really great.
You don't want to have that kind of thing going on. So yeah, that's also why we aim to raise most of our money from the public sale, right? So the idea is that there really isn't so much before that can be dumped onto them, so to speak. So
yeah, I think that's personally speaking, I think that's great. I think that's great to see. we've got a couple of questions come in the general again.
Nice. Let's see.
As well.
Will there be ARM64 Linux builds? Yes. I mean, like, you could compile it yourself, I guess. I mean, we can definitely build it. It's just that we don't have ARM64 Linux machines with graphics to test it on. That's probably the issue. But it should build. I'm not sure. Apple M1, sure. I mean, although I feel like considering Rosetta is pretty fast, right? I don't think that the Melis wallet really is so performance critical, and it's definitely something we'll consider. It shouldn't be hard. Like, there's nothing in the code that would not compile for ARM. And in fact, we are doing so to make our Android version. So, yeah. Open GitHub issues or talk about it on the forum. I'd like to hear you guys' thoughts on kind of like what, features and things like that we would want from Melis and Melminter and all the other parts of the ecosystem. So,
yeah, that could be a good function as well for the forum, is getting some,
definitely,
and it might be a good one as well, and getting the attention of some developers by posing some interesting kind of discussion topics definitely. Or questions or. Yeah, I feel like some of the stuff I'm not qualified to talk about. So, like what's a popular, or a kind of a controversial issue within the developer community, that could be a good prompt to get some people's eyes on the forum and just Themelio and be like, oh, okay, let's see what these guys are doing over here, how they want to build things differently.
Definitely.
That's a good one as well, I guess. If any community members have any suggestions of ideas for the forum, we have a suggestions channel there.
Actually,
or even,
did you put the link for the forum on the webpage?
Not yet. So for the website, actually, we are doing a general rewrite of the website to improve it and also just adding things in more. Basically, just rewriting the kind of framework we made for it, and we're going to launch like a new website with a better homepage and better links to all these things soon. So we'll definitely link the forum.
Yeah, it's a good call out. Good idea. Okay. I guess, is there anything else we want to go over? How are we doing? This is a really fun call. Really enjoyed this one.
Definitely.
Nice to see some new faces in here as well. It's really great. Thank you all for joining.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this definitely was a good call, guys. So appreciate you guys all coming in. Next time, tell your friends.
Definitely. I mean, we could even do like, I'm sure the referral system would get more people to join our community, and next time we'll have even more people. And next time we'll probably be demonstrating our new programming language. So that will be very cool. Yeah.
Also, Eric, maybe you could like announce for the next one like an airdrop or something. You know, and it's like someone gets picked at random and they get like 100 mils or something.
Yeah, something like that. So.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea, actually. Yeah, we'll do that. I guess partially on me, the days had slipped by and I was like, oh, it's almost Friday. And then I remembered we might be doing this, so we only...
I had no idea we had the call today. Yeah, we
left it as tentative all week. So yeah, my fault on that one as well. But yeah, next time around, we'll make sure to shout about it a bit more in advance. And yeah, throw in a little surprise like that would be cool.
Definitely.
I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah, it was definitely a great community call this time. Hopefully we'll have more excitement next time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, last to say something, guys.
I think there's actually... Arturi has one more question in the general. I guess we can take that before we call it.
Yeah, will there be a new language in the future? Well, for the layer one, right? So the relationship between Melodium and the blockchain is basically the same as Solidity and the blockchain, right? The blockchain itself doesn't actually encode the language. The blockchain has a MelVM language, just like Ethereum has EVM. So our official MELVM language would be Melodium, but people can of course develop other things. I mean, like if somebody wants to make like a Solidity style syntax for MELVM, sure, go for it, right? But the idea is kind of like, just like Solidity is like the de facto standard Ethereum language, we will have a standard Themelio language. And for the layer 2 ecosystem, then I don't think there will be like a standard language for that, right? It depends on what you're building. If you're building, let's say, rollups that also do UTXOs, you could also use Melodium. If you're building EVM-based rollups, you could use Solidity, right? Or even if you're building off-chain constructs, like it'll mostly be written in Rust or maybe Go or some other language that people use, right? So that's kind of, there's no standard at that level. Yeah. So yeah. Cool. It was great talking to everybody today.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Mm-hmm.
Nice little sticker in the general chat there to send us off.
Yeah.
Appreciate that 210.
Definitely.